Hi, this is Cal Robinson here, and I want to take a minute to talk to you about giving. Being Christmas time and so near to the Hurricane Helene events, giving is probably on your mind. And I wanted to share with you just a little bit of my personal testimony about giving. Something that recently happened really makes me want to do that. Most of us seem to be willing to give to those that are in need, especially when catastrophic things happen most unexpectedly. And as a culture, we're a pretty generous people here in America. How does our generous culture stack up against our own personal giving? If you're like me, you're generous with true need, but often skeptical of that person professing need and wonder, is it true? Also, if you're like me, giving a tenth of your income to God is desired, but you have often felt like maybe you couldn't afford it sometimes. I mean, be honest. I've learned over the years that really you can't afford not to give. In Proverbs 3:9 through 10, it says, honor the Lord from your wealth and from all and from the first of all your produce, so your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. I recently had an interesting reminder that God blesses heartfelt giving and that we just cannot give enough to outgive God. More about that in a minute. As a young Christian with a new career and lots of bills to pay, I often struggle with the idea of giving a tenth of my income to God. I wanted to, but it seemed I never had enough to cover it all, no matter how hard I seemed to try. An older Christian and I were discussing giving and how hard that I found it to find enough money to cover my bills and give to God. And he told me about Malachi 3:10, where it says, bring the full tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in the house, and thereby put me to the test, says the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven until there is no more need, he told me. God does not need our gifts, but he desires us to want to give to him. He wants to bless us, and we just cannot outgive God. You can test him on this, he said. I did, he said, and I see that God is faithful in what he says. He suggested that I should start giving something and see what happens. He also said you can ease your giving up to 10% as you're comfortable with that. Start off with 3% if you can afford that, you think, and gradually ease it up. I have to say, he was correct every time I have seen the giving test applied. God is abundantly faithful, full of blessings, and we certainly cannot outgive God. In fact, I learned that my lack of giving was more connected to my own lack of faith more than my lack of resources. As I matured as a Christian, this principle of giving has grown in me, and I've observed my faith grow with it. Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe I should say my faith has grown and my giving has grown with it. Most of all, I've not missed anything I gave because somehow it's all come back and even more, it seems. Another man once gave me a prophecy in a particularly dark period of my life. He prophesied that God would restore the years that the locust had eaten. I was leading a men's ministry in Nashville, and this man was a confidant. I saw this man at these meetings, and he had a gift for prophecy, and I'd been telling him my sorrow at things I should have done and how I had felt parts of my life had been squandered. I felt useless. I felt like I was a failure. I was lacking hope for the future because of the past. That's when he told me about Joel 2:25, where it says, so I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, the chewing locust, my great army which I sent among you. He followed this with an admonition from Proverbs 3:5 through 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I did what he told me, and God certainly restored the years the locust had eaten in my life with greater faith, more joy, more happiness, answered prayers, a prosperous life, and a greater feeling of humility towards God and God's awesomeness. He's granted me not only more wisdom, but I feel blessed with more of the fruits of the Spirit in my life. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. In other words, the fruit of the Spirit. I certainly still have my struggles, but I have far more good days now than bad days. And yes, God did restore the years the locust had eaten in my life. As a result of this increase in my faith, I've been a far more faithful giver, and I believe that played no small part in the restoration in my life. Now here comes the more later part that I promised you earlier. When Hurricane Helene hit western North Carolina and East Tennessee, I was not so strongly affected other than some minor inconveniences. But I saw people all around me who were being devastated by the floods. They lost homes, businesses, property, animals, even whole families were wiped out. In Tennessee, my home did not even lose power, much less internet, but I watched people in fear for their lives on top of the hospital in Erwin, Tennessee. I had a friend over in Erwin who was concerned if a cousin had survived the flooding of the industrial area in Erwin, where he had been working and people were missing. I prayed for them, but I was powerless in the moment to do anything else. It was in God's hands. My house in the Asheville area was spared damage, though several large oak trees fell around it. They fell in a way to do no damage to my house. I felt blessed, but I soon felt some sort of calling because this could have been me that received devastation, but it wasn't. My children in the Asheville area lost power, internet, water, cell service, but they were safe, and it could have been much worse. But they were in the middle of this struggle and this mess. For some reason, my house got power back in Asheville in just a few days, and since I have a well, water came back as well. My children had a place to go for showers and water service. I also was one of the first to get the internet back so they could use that to communicate. Miriam and I had a mostly prepaid and pre-planned trip to Niagara Falls that was scheduled the week after the hurricane hit. I felt guilty for leaving with people struggling. I knew that was not connected, but I could not help but pray about what God wanted me to be doing in regards to this disaster. I soon realized I was desiring to give on faith a sum of money for relief that would directly impact someone like me that was affected, but unlike me, had lost everything. I prayed about where I could give this money that would not abuse the gift or take an inordinate amount of money out of it for overhead expenses. I wanted to give directly to the relief of someone's pain and suffering. I had been saving up for this trip, and I knew that a significant portion of that must go to these people in need. I had this brief feeling that the amount was too much for me to afford. But my faith took over, and I promised God I was doing this. I'd talked to Miriam about it, and she agreed it should be done, and now I had to find the proper place. I prayed. I found that our church had partnered with some other local churches and the Appalachia Service Project to rebuild 3 homes of an extended family unit that lost 3 homes, along with everything in them, on the family farm in the Embryville area of East Tennessee, out near the Nolichucky River. The Appalachia Service Project had partnered with us to rebuild the 3 homes for $50,000 each. That's $150,000 for materials to build 3 homes using volunteer labor. It would put 3 families back into 3 new homes. When I heard about this and that they had already raised $70,000, I knew I was all in for this. And by the next week, when I was planning to send my contribution, the sum raised had increased to $80,000. I was now concerned the sum would be raised before I could make my contribution. I rushed home and put my contribution in with the rest of these faithful givers, but only after I had paused with Miriam to pray over that contribution. I looked at my bank account, which dropped dramatically. I knew in my heart God had this and that I was doing what He was pleased with. I did not feel remorse, but I did feel powerful. I was doing something greater than myself with other people of faith to restore what the locust had eaten in other people's lives. I was not concerned with the money because I knew who had me in their hands as well. My bank account was not a concern, even though it was down very low. A couple days later, I was balancing my checkbook and wrote my bank account balance in next to my gift amount, and it was the same amount as the check I'd written plus 92 cents. I felt my heart stop for a second. Wait a minute, that's the same. Had I made a mistake? Had I not put the amount of my gift in the balance? And oh man, what was going on? But my heart raced, and I raced to explain what my eyes made me suspect. Had I made a mistake? I calmed down and looked again to discover that some unexpected deposits had made up the difference of my gift. And my bank account really was 92 cents more than it was before I made the gift. You really can't outgive God. If you would like to donate to rebuilding for Helene flood victims, check out the Appalachia Service Project. This is a very worthy ministry that our church has been affiliated with probably for more than 30 years. They are doing God's work in Appalachia. Less than 1 month after Hurricane Helene, 3 homes are under construction for local families. ASP's goal is to have at least 5 families in new homes by Easter, if not sooner. ASP, or Appalachian Service Project, is committed to repairing or replacing at least 200 homes for families that were impacted by the storm. They love the Appalachian region and are committed to its long-term recovery. This work is only possible because of the love and generosity of people like us. Thank you for listening, and please like and share and subscribe to my channel. And remember, the Appalachia Service Project, as it endeavors to relieve some of the pain and suffering from the people in this area. You can reach them through https://asphome.org/. And I will put that on the video where you can see it. And please remember them in your prayers and in your giving. Thank you.